Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Every Day is Friday 365. I'm your host, Matthew, and remember to subscribe so you can join me on this journey where every day is Friday. Today, I got a really special guest joining us, Dr. Lee. She has worked in healthcare for over 20 years and in education for over 10 years. She was appointed by Governor Kemp to serve on the Georgia Department of Community Health. Dr. Lee is passionate about faith, freedom, and fixing education in Georgia. Dr. Lee, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today, Matthew.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this podcast. And, how's life been treating you lately? And where are you finding meaning and purpose today in your life?
It's been treating me great. I'm finding meaning in really just talking to people just like yourself. I've been crisscrossing the state. As you know, I'm running for superintendent of schools, and really, whenever I give my speech, it's been well received, and I believe that we're building momentum. And so, yes, that's really awesome to see.
Now, Dr. Lee, for the listeners who may not be familiar with your work yet, can you give us a quick rundown of who you are and what you do?
Sure. So your intro was amazing. Thank you. But yeah, I actually have 30 years of experience in healthcare and I ran a vocational school for 20 years. And between that, I served as an adjunct professor. I was homeschool mom. I, did a little stint as uh, substitute teacher. And so I have a lot of experience in both healthcare and education. And I just believe that we really need a change, really, right now in the state of Georgia. We rank 38 out of 50. And that we were recently surpassed by Mississippi. And so we really need to go back to the basics. 70% of our fourth graders aren't proficient in reading, and 76% of our eighth graders aren't proficient in math. And so we need to have some leadership, implement some of the legislative, changes that have already taken place. But really, we need leadership more than anything else, fresh perspective here in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, and you're really big on trade school. I mean, why do you
Yes.
believe every graduate should have like a trade certificate?
Right. That is really my signature initiative. And the main reason for that, Matthew, is that I want them to be workforce ready right from day one. As soon as they finish high school, the very next day they can go to their jobs. And this is whether or not you are college bound. So, college bound students, they oftentimes need a little bit of direction as to what should they, get their degree in. And even if they have an idea, they still can benefit from a built-in internship, right? Which is what trade school will do. It'll provide them with the ability to work in the industry that they are getting a degree in. That's what I did. I obtained a trade certificate the summer between my junior and senior year in high school, and it afforded me the ability to gain experience in the healthcare field. And so as soon as I finished my degree, I was able to get a good job because I had the experience in addition to the degree. But if you're not college bound, it's a game changer because it now gives you a career. You're not just going from job to job to job. You now have a pathway, a career to be able to, fend for yourself and provide for your family.
Many students need skills they can use right away.
Right.
Why is trade school important today?
More so than before, I believe, because we're now dealing with AI, right? And so most trade certificates are AI proof, right? And especially now with the baby boomers retiring in droves, you have a lot of these electrician businesses and plumbing and welding businesses that are basically going to go under, right? Without their leadership. So I'm proposing things like apprenticeships programs where you're able to train that young person and they're able to take over that business, that plumbing business or electrician. So they'll get their trade certification and they'll get business experience and and they're able to continue your legacy. And so we need that now more than ever, especially with all of these skills that are now being able to be taken over by AI.
Dr. Lee, starting a school shows that you care about what you're doing and it makes real change. I mean, why did you decide to start a trade school?
So it really came about because at the time I was a director of patient advocacy at the Grady Health System. With Grady is a large public hospital in the state of Georgia, right in the heart of Atlanta, and we had lots of different. Not limited English proficient patients, right? And those are patients that might speak a little bit of English, but they weren't proficient enough for a medical setting. And, according to civil rights laws, you have to provide them with interpreting services. And well, we had individuals who were bilingual, but they weren't trained to be able to provide these services. And it was very difficult at the time. This was in the early 2000s to be able to find the training. And so I went up to my CEO and I said, "Hey, why don't we, partner with one of these schools and provide the training ourselves?" He passed on the idea. Well, I had already been trained as an adjunct professor and a curriculum developer for DeVry University. And so I used those skill sets and I applied them into this industry and created my own vocational school for bilingual individuals to become medical interpreters. And I ran that school for 20 years.
I love that. Dr. Lee, success can look different for each student. I know this for a fact for me. Why do you think college is not the only path for success?
It isn't the only path. And I think the gig is up. I think for many years they tried to tell students that that was the only path to success. And I think now more than ever we see so many students with debt, that's equal to a mortgage and nothing much more to show for it. Now, yes, if you're going to be a doctor, a nurse, or a lawyer, yes, please go to college, but it's not the path for everyone and it's not the only path for success. As you mentioned, you know, electricians make six figures, plumbers make six figures, right? And that is without his huge, massive, debt to be riddled with on top of that, of everything else. And believe it or not, nowadays we're postponing homeownership. And the primary reason is because of college debt, right? That they're postponing, young people are postponing homeownership till 35, 40 years old because of college debt. And so it's not really leading to success at all in so many metrics. So I propose that we utilize the resources that we already have. In the state of Georgia, we have what is called dual enrollment credits. So students can get up to 30 credits of dual enrollment so they can enroll in college while they're going to high school. Well, I say, how about we reallocate those funds to providing them with a trade school certification, right? It's a better use of our money, I believe, and it will better prepare both those that are college bound as well as those that are not college bound for their future.
Dr. Lee, you mentioned that literature in K through second grade is not that good in Georgia. Why do you believe Georgia can do a better education?
So I don't know if I've mentioned this, but Mississippi, they outpaced us, right? They went from 50th to the top 10. And the way that they did that was that they did not allow for any promotion of children from the third to the fourth grade unless they were reading. And so we have laws on the books here in Georgia to do just that, but we are lacking initiative. We are lacking leadership to do that. And so we need to go back to the basics, go back to phonics, reading, and arithmetic for the things that we are focused on in elementary. But without literacy, children can't learn, you know, science. Okay. If they're not reading, they can't do math problems later on. So they need that literacy as a foundation. They need to have a strong literacy foundation. And so we need to make sure that we're prioritizing that. And so I propose that we do something very similar. So initially I said second grade, but we can do third grade. No one can graduate from third grade or be promoted to the fourth grade without learning how to read. And that will definitely cut down on all of the issues that we're having with high schoolers being basically illiterate.
What you're saying makes sense because how could you move forward if you haven't passed in the beginning?
The foundations,
The
yes.
foundation is so crucial about, just learning how to read and write. That is before going on to your next grade. I mean, I know a lot of kids get left behind, and I appreciate how you are so willing to just help these kids and wanting to, it's not like putting them in a situation that they're not ready for. You're putting them in a situation that you want them to learn and
and
grow
succeed.
from it.
Correct. And be able to succeed. Because kids know if I can't read, I can't do history. I can't learn history. So there's so much other, you know, implications. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but prisons are built based on the number of illiterate children by the third grade. So even prisons know that if you're not teaching a child how to read by a certain age, that their chances of going into lawlessness increases exponentially.
Mhm. Wow, that's a great point. You running for office really takes lots of courage. Why did you run for Georgia superintendent of schools?
So, as I mentioned, we are severely lacking. And so I really believe that we need new leadership. And that is the key. The current superintendent of schools has been in office 12 years and he's running again. And so at some point, someone has to stand up and say, enough is enough. We need new leadership. We need a new direction. And I've always, like I said, I've always have had a heart of advocacy. And so this is just another step in that direction. I believe that when there's a problem, I should be part of the solution.
Now, Dr. Lee, what's your opinion on school of choice?
So, my second signature initiative is that I want us to be a school choice, a true school choice state. So, we passed a law called the Promise Scholarship Act here in Georgia about a year ago. I don't believe it went far enough. So, under that law, only those whose children attend a school that's in the bottom 25 percentile of the state academically can send their kids to a different type of learning environment, and only if your child is currently in the school system. So if you are homeschooling your child or your child went to private school, you're not eligible for that voucher. So that to me is not true school choice. And so I believe that we should expand that Promise Scholarship Act to $8,000 and to allow everyone in the state to use it, because I believe parents, not the school system, know best what learning environment their child will thrive in.
You know, why are some students graduating without real job skills in Georgia?
Well, unfortunately, it's not just Georgia. This is a nationwide issue, but we're wasting their time. I feel that, we're so focused on all these social issues, right, in the school system, and we're not focused on the basics. We just threw out, the three R's right out the window, and we're just focused on so many other things that don't really move the needle for success later on. And so I believe that we just need to go back to the basics and have some true courage when it comes to standing up to all these companies and special interests that try to bring their own agendas into the school system.
Dr. Lee, with all your years of experience and you being an entrepreneur, how can like education and businesses work together?
Well, I really would like to see more entrepreneur apprenticeships, right? For kids that are wanting to become plumbers and welders and electricians, I believe that we should utilize those that, like I said, the baby boomers are moving out, right? They're in their retirement ages. Before they retire, let's utilize their knowledge, right, for that industry and also for business, right? So let's utilize all of that knowledge and pass on their legacy. So having more business partnerships with these youngsters and have them apprentice right under them. And I believe that will be the best solution to move our both our children and our economy forward.
Yeah. I think strong workers build a strong economy. So,
Right.
something like that. And, for me personally, I think like what role should parents play in like a kid's education is so crucial.
Exactly. Yes. Parental involvement is the number one key for true success for youngsters. And so we need to keep parents engaged. And that is why school choice is so important.
Now, I do want to bring this up because I did read it on your website that you did some homeschooling.
I
Now,
did.
how did being a homeschool mom shape your views on education?
Well, I didn't come at it from your typical, your normal, homeschool mom scenario. My son was on the spectrum, and initially he was in school and just wasn't really doing well socially. He was brilliant academically, even till this day. He's a kind of borderline genius, but we really needed a little bit extra support when it came to socially and developmentally. And so that's really why I started homeschooling him. And I homeschooled him all the way through the fifth grade when he went on to a private school. And really what it showed me was the importance of keeping parents engaged. Right. Oftentimes you hear from school systems that say, well, if we have school choice, it'll decimate the school system. No, that's not true. Oftentimes parents aren't desiring to homeschool their children all the way. Oftentimes it's just, hey, they realize that their child needs a little bit more one-on-one attention at that point. And so I would encourage schools to keep parents engaged, even those that are homeschooling their children. The school systems can play a huge role in that, whether it's with the arts, with other things outside of academics, the arts and the athletics and things like that, so that when that parent decides to bring their child back, or if they do, they're able to do so. But it's really important to keep parents engaged, and I believe that that's really what that brought me, just kind of like a firsthand experience in what school choice really is, why it's so necessary.
You know, you're an author as well, which
Correct.
I love. I want to dive into the titles of your books. I mean, what does Stay and Fight mean to you?
So all of my books, I write them as written testimonies, right? I'm a believer, and the Bible says, we overcome by the word of the lamb, the blood of the lamb, and the word of our testimony. And so when I write a book, it's usually based on a experience that I had, a challenge that I might have had that I want others to learn from or to be encouraged by. And so Stay and Fight is a marriage book. My husband and I have been married going on 26 years now. And I can tell you that there were some very serious challenges throughout those years. And we were able to stay together primarily because of our faith, but also because of our commitment to each other. And so I just want to encourage everyone with that book to fight for your marriages and just truly be committed and devoted to each other.
I love that. The another one of your titles is uh be the superhero of your own story. I love that. Can you dive into that a little bit?
Yes, I wrote that book in response to COVID and how I was seeing so many youngsters, young people especially, with all the isolation that COVID did. Suicide rates went up, anxiety and depression went up. We know this anecdotally that, alcoholism and drug use also increased during those years. And this book is about resilience. It's about encountering something difficult and how to use that difficulty to propel you forward, right? And that's what resilience is to me. And when I talk about being a superhero of your story, superheroes need a big challenge, right? To show off their strength, to show off their superpowers. And I tell in this book that we are the same way. Everyone, when there's faced with a major challenge, that is your opportunity to show the world what you're made of. How gritty you are and what special powers and talents that you have. And so that is what that book's all about.
Dr. Lee, how can we help students believe in their future again?
We need to encourage them. We need to realize that everybody learns differently, right? And everybody has a different vision and path for their own life. So I might want my child to do XYZ, but they have a vision and a path that they would like to follow. And so just really being engaged with your child and encouraging them, encouraging their love for learning or encouraging their entrepreneurial desires, whatever it is that they are truly passionate about. Encouraging that and molding it, try to mold them in the right direction. I think oftentimes you know, we poo poo, like we'll downplay someone's desire to be, say, a YouTuber, right? Well, you know what? That's showing initiative. That's showing that they want to be an entrepreneur. So sign them up for business classes, right? Sign them up for marketing classes. Whatever it is, we can encourage their love for learning. We can encourage the vision and the path that they want to take with their life. It will most likely change. Guess, right? I'm sure you've changed your path and your thoughts many times. So did I. But it's important for them to know that they have a support system in their parents and their teachers, etc.
And testing the waters out, because for me, I went
Correct.
to trade school. I didn't tell you this yet, but I went to trade
No.
school myself and I tested the waters. I did it in high school. So I went half my day, I went to a trade school. I learned all
Wonderful.
about machining and welding and robotics and stuff like that. And it was free.
That's
Okay. That
awesome.
was the best part of it. So I got to test the waters before I even went to college, seeing if I even liked this type of, work. And then
Right.
I eventually went into that line of work. I went to college for a couple of years and I found an internship. And
Mhm.
then through my college, I got an internship. And then I was half on, half off. I went to college until I graduated and I had a full time job after it.
I love it. Now
Yes.
that is exactly the pathway that I would love for our students to take.
And it's not easy, I'll tell you that much, because if you have to pass your classes, if you wanna have the job at the end of the day, if you don't pass your classes, your employer is not gonna pay for it, because your employer
Exactly.
was paying for me going to school. That's the big key there. You have to pass your classes, and you have to be a good student. You have to show up on time. I mean,
Uh-huh.
show up 15 minutes early or late, that's my routine. But,
Right.
I know every student learns not the same way.
Correct.
How can we prepare students for both college and careers?
For starters, we need to arm them with the basics, right? So many students today are going to college and having to take remedial courses because they didn't have the basics. They didn't get the basics when they were supposed to. I believe that's immoral, really, for us to waste students' time in school when they're not getting that. Second thing is just like you were offered this opportunity, we need to give students more options, more opportunity. And so I would like to see more private public partnerships. There's lots of different vocational schools, maybe so much, not all of them have to be in the blue collars. Yes, we need welders and plumbers and electricians, but there's also a myriad of healthcare certifications, right? Or what I would like to see is the pipeline for us to train students that want to be eventually teachers to train them as parapros right from the school system. And that way they are getting that parapros is sort of like an assistant to a teacher. And so they're getting their feet wet. And then if they want to continue on with their certification, that experience helps towards their certification. So there's so many different things that we can do to prepare various types of students for the workforce.
My father once mentioned to me, he's like, we have to have a class on life, how to
Yes,
pay taxes and how to how to write a check and stuff like that, because they
right.
don't teach you that stuff in school.
Not
And
anymore. No.
no, no, not anymore. They used to have wood shop and a whole bunch of other things that taught me how to swing a hammer. I didn't learn how to swing a hammer in school until I went to trade school.
Wow.
And if you have the leadership there, it's nice. And if you don't have the leadership, you don't know where to go. Now, what's one change you would make in Georgia's schools right away?
So I believe that we can easily implement the vocational schools for all because, as I mentioned, we have the dual enrollment in Georgia. So it wouldn't cost anything. We wouldn't require any legislative, initiatives. We would basically just reallocate those funds from dual enrollment to a trade certificate. Uh, as far as literacy is concerned, we already have the laws on the books. We just need initiative. We just need leadership in these areas. So these are low hanging fruit that wouldn't require any real major legislative initiatives. Now, on the long term, I would like for us to have a completely overhauled budgetary system. We have a very archaic QBE budgetary system here in the state of Georgia that unfortunately lends itself to a lot of corruption. And so I like to have something that's a lot more transparent and easy and to do so that we are reducing the number of superintendents that are having to resign over mismanagement of funds.
I'm just thinking here. I mean, how can communities support local schools better?
Just being involved. Parents need to, and we saw a groundswell of this happening in the days following COVID, when parents were realized for the first time what kind of curriculum their children were being exposed to. But don't stop there. Continue to go to your PTA meetings. Continue to go to your school board meetings. Make sure that you are engaged. Make sure that you are involved with everything that takes place in your child's school. Because at the end of the day, when the parents are engaged, students thrive.
The future we're going into is going to be a lot different with this AI future coming
Yes.
in. What gives you hope about the future of our education?
Well, here's the thing: you can use AI to help with education. So I'll give you an example. Here in the state of Georgia, over 50% of our budget is spent on administration, right? And we're not the only ones that have this very top heavy administration budget. We can streamline that by making sure that we are streamlining these various roles. And AI can definitely pick up the a lot of the slack in that regard, right? A lot of these things that administration is doing are things that we can outsource to AI. And so there's different things, because here's the problem. When you're spending over 50% in administration, guess where that money is not going? To the schools and the teachers and the students. And that is where we need those resources to flow down to. So I don't like it when people say, well, your initiative, for expanding school choice is going to add to the budget. I'm like, no, we have money that we can reallocate from other places to these initiatives, because at the end of the day, that is where our resources need to go to.
Yeah, I mean, the next generation is so crucial. And, I know the older generation is right about to retire. So we kind of got to fill them in these roles on, electrical, plumbing, a lot of
Yes,
this type of work because they need to teach these younger kids, younger adults to
yes.
basically how to do this type of work.
Mhm.
With all your years of experience at Dr. Lee and everything you've done, you're a CEO, founder. Uh, what are three lessons from your journey and how can people use them today?
Well, I'll tell you, I am one of the most persistent people that I know, and grit is one of my superpowers. Right? When I talk about your superpowers that come come through with adversity, and that's one of those that I've noticed in myself. So I would say, be very gritty. Grace is also really important. It's so crucial when we're dealing with difficulty, not to add on to it ourselves, right? Oftentimes we have so much negative self talk that we bury our opportunities before we even give them a chance. So I would encourage everyone to give themselves lots of grace, allow for mistakes. It's okay. It's not failure unless you quit. And so grit and grace are so important. And the last one would be gratitude. Make sure that every single day that you are appreciating the small things and the big things, right? I try to do this with my children. I have two teenagers and a young adult, and we are all in a family group chat. And every day we end the day by saying three things that we're grateful for, whether that's food, whether that's your bed, whether that's the love of your family, whatever, big, we celebrate the big things and also the little things.
I love that. That's a great point. I would give that a try. Someone on my
Yes.
podcast told me when he wishes someone a happy birthday, he asks them for some advice. And he does this every year. And it's one of
Oh,
those
I
things I
love
like.
that.
I like that. And I like your routine too. Uh,
Yes.
it's special. It really is. You are an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. I want to hear from you. What advice can you give to someone that wants to start a business?
I would say learn as much of the industry that you are wanting to enter. Learn as much about it as you can. Most industries have a trade, organization connected to it. Get involved in that trade organization, and also attend a couple of the conferences of that trade. So it's always really good to really um, rub shoulders with those that are in that industry. Now, don't be afraid to do things totally different, right? But you can't really effectively do that unless you know how things were being done. And so definitely encourage everyone. I think entrepreneurship is beautiful. It's difficult. It's not easy. Anyone that tells you that it's easy is sugarcoating it for you. Okay, entrepreneurship is difficult because the buck stops with you. Oftentimes, when you're first starting out, you're doing everything, right? You are wearing multiple hats, and that's okay. And then when you are ready, when you are growing, be willing to delegate. I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck. They think that they have to do it all forever, and that's not the case. So when you're having some success, be willing to start delegating more and more of those roles.
I love that. That is such a good point. Everyone, go back 30 seconds and listen to what she just said because that is so true. There's multiple hats you're going to wear in entrepreneurship.
Yes,
It's not easy, like you said, and it's the small wins that stack up that makes the big goal happen.
correct. Yes, for sure.
And I really want to ask you this: how has faith guided you through your journey?
Faith is integral. Faith is integral to everything that I do. It informs every decision that I make. So I mentioned my 4 books that are my written testimonies, and throughout all of those, you will see how my faith and my relationship with Jesus has guided everything. And I truly believe it gives me, you know, I'm filled with the Holy Spirit, right? And it gives me extra strength to get through the tough times. It gives me insight, right? And discernment. And so I highly recommend a relationship with Jesus to everyone, all of your listeners.
I love that. I say a whole bunch of stuff on my podcast about God and what you are, God's gift from you, and what you do with it is your gift to God.
I love that. Yes.
Um, for someone that's just trying to go through life, what's the best piece of advice you can share at this point in your life?
So for myself or for someone
Yeah,
else?
no, for right now,
Mhm.
what's the best piece of advice you can share right now at this point in your life?
I would say, and I've been repeating this often lately, I feel like that it needs to be repeated. And that is one of my favorite books is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the reason it's an oldie but goodie, the reason why I feel that is so much needed right now is because, especially with all the activism and all of the things that we're seeing today, a lot of it is much ado about nothing to me. And if you are a reader of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you wouldn't realize that there's 4 quadrants, right? There's, of where you can put your energy and your time, whether it's urgent and important, urgent, not important, not important but urgent, not important, and or important and not urgent. So here's the thing: the majority of your time should be spent in the important but not urgent quadrant, and that is where effective people live. Yes, you're going to have to. Delegate or do things in the other quadrants, but the less time you give to those other quadrants, the better. And I feel like now more than ever, those those um those tenets are so important because people are wasting so much of their time and energy on things that aren't going to move the needle at the end of the day. And it's sad to see. It really is.
You know, it's so true. Dr. Lee, the show was called Every Day is Friday. And as you know, Friday has a special energy, whether it's freedom, excitement, just feeling of
Right.
accomplishment after a long week. Dr. Lee, I want to hear from you. What does Every Day is Friday mean to you?
So here's my thing. If you are dreading your Mondays and your Tuesdays and your Wednesdays and only looking forward to Friday, you need a change in your job. Okay, you can't live like that. Life is not meant to be lived in drudgery all week long. So yes, every single day should feel like I'm excited. This is awesome. The energy that you bring to your quote unquote TGIF should be there all week long. And so that should be an encouragement to everyone. Hey, if I'm not living like that every day, if I'm not looking forward to every single day, then I need a change.
I love that. Bring that energy into everyday life. Every day is Friday.
Yes. Every day is Friday. Yes.
This is your chance to leave the listeners with something powerful. What else would you like to share?
Oh, we've had a lot of different nuggets of wisdom here. I would leave them with one more thing, uh, and that is it's so important to prioritize family. Um, I'm a career woman. I've been one before I had a family, but oftentimes I've had to put a pause or pin to my career aspirations. Uh, in favor of that. And I believe that the number one advice I received was that your career is always going to be there for your time with your children, especially through 18. It's precious. You don't get a do-over. Building up a strong marriage is so important. And so I would encourage everyone, you can have it all, just not all at the same time oftentimes. And so this is a message for someone, I'm sure, that's thinking about that. Like, oh gosh, am I going to give up my career? It's not giving it up. It's just putting a pause, put a pin on it. And I can tell you that right now, I feel very fortunate because my kids are older, my marriage is really rocking and rolling, and I feel very free to be able to pursue my political aspirations now, where I not so much in the past. And I don't believe that I missed a step at all. So I highly encourage everyone to make sure that your priorities are in the right place.
Dr. Lee, can you peel that back a little bit more for me? I mean, what have you learned from being married 25 years while leading a business?
How much time do you have, Matthew? I can tell you that uh, w- one of the first things as a woman, I approach marriage differently. Obviously, I don't know if you're married, Matthew, but I can tell you that as a Christian woman specifically, it was very important to me to not overstep, right? And to make sure that whatever I was doing, that I had my husband's support and that I was doing it in the right order. And that might sound anti-feminist to a lot of people. You know what? So be it. God's economy always trumps everything, and I don't mind being counterculture. But at the end of the day, when people say, "Oh, you're so ambitious," I'm like, "You have no idea how many things I put in the back burner to make sure that my family, I was following God first, husband second, family third, to make sure that all those things were in line." And I think it's so important. When you have a business, you have to do the same, right? Business can be all consuming, politics can be all consuming, but at the end of the day, you should always prioritize what's important. So God first, your spouse second, and your children third. Your children are not second, children third. And then everything else comes after that. And trust me, at the time, it might seem, oh gosh, I'm going to be left behind or whatever. But when you're doing things with God's economy, with the proper order, you're going to win in the end.
That is such a good point. What advice would you give a young woman who wants to be in a leadership position?
Mhm. The same one that I just gave is make sure if she's married, make sure that she has her husband's full support, not compelling your husband to have full support, but truly make sure that it fits within your family. If she has children, make sure that they're able to handle you with that leadership role. I was always compelled to be in leadership, right? I always believed that that was what I was meant to do. I believe that I have really good leadership talents and gifts. However, not all leadership positions are for your specific season in life, right? And so we have to just be very mindful of that. So pray for discernment, pray for wisdom. Make sure that whatever it is that you are pursuing is not going to be a detriment to your family or to your marriage.
I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to be doing in the future here, Dr. Lee. Where can the
Thank
people
you.
follow and support your work?
They can go to my website, drnelvalee.com. That's drnelvalee.com. I have tons of content on there, my books, all of them are listed there, as well as my podcast interviews, my speeches, and they can connect with me on social media there as well.
Everything is in the description down below. Hit the link down there. And thank you for sharing your stories and experiences, Dr. Lee.
Thank you so much for having me. Really
And
appreciate it.
yeah. And if everyone out there, if you want to subscribe to everyone listening out there. Stay tuned for more amazing stories on Every Day is Friday. If you enjoyed this, make sure you follow, share, and keep that Every Day is Friday mindset going. Stay inspired and make every day feel like Friday. Till next time, everybody.